Hello and welcome to the value of the facilities audit and the impact of COVID-19. My name is Joe Rayburn. I'm the Director of Sales for Building Solutions, and presenting with me today is William Dillard. He's our Director of Marketing. We're happy to be selected to be presenters at this year's Texas Charter School Association Conference. Miss seeing all of you in person, but sure are excited and proud of the association for coming up with this virtual platform for us to be together. Before we talk about the facility audit in and of itself, I wanted to take a few minutes just to talk about our firm and who we are. I know a lot of you know Building Solutions. I know a lot of you have worked with us on projects at your schools. We're a 30-year-old firm located in Dallas, Texas, and we are trusted advisors and really the chief advocate for schools in matters of facilities management, assessment, project leadership, construction management, master planning, space utilization studies. There's a wide range of services that we offer to schools to make sure that we are being good stewards of our facilities and have an eye on the future to make sure we continue to service our students and our communities in a way that's appropriate. I mentioned we're a 30-year-old firm. In fact, October, we turned 30 years old, and we'll be launching some really exciting initiatives over this next calendar year that are very important to the leadership of our company, and we're excited to share those and celebrate with all of you. We are a Texas firm, but we do have a national reach. We service schools, nonprofits, higher education, churches, diocesan groups all over the country. 38 states. We've completed over 200 different assignments in those states. We have the richest benchmarking database we feel of any private organization that works for schools, which really informs us and allows us to make educated technical advice to schools when it comes to decision making, capital planning, forecasting, staffing plans. We maintain that database based on our interaction with those 100+ schools nationally that we mentioned a minute ago. We've seen thousands of buildings in any condition you can imagine. We expose our assessments team and our construction group to a number of different conditions. That allows us to be much more advised and sound in the direction we take a school when it comes to planning and space utilization. It also allows us to be very effective construction managers when we're helping schools and leading a construction effort, because we've seen these buildings and how they're used and what has worked once it comes out of design, and what design decisions haven't worked well in practical applications. Makes us a very effective construction manager because we are a healthy blended practice. We are committed to helping schools all over the country. We are members of a number of national organizations that support education, schools, communities, higher learning. So this is the meat and potatoes of our practice, and we're very happy to be here and be a part of the conference. Well, let's talk for a minute about those different service lines that we offer at Building Solutions. We have an assessment group. Within the assessment group, you would certainly find the team that delivers and performs a facility audit that we're going to talk about in this presentation. You'll also find that in that practice, we do facility assessment for a number of long-term owners, commercial properties, healthcare organizations, retail companies, manufacturing operations. Will engage our team to go out and give a very detailed assessment of a property that they own and want to run and manage more predictably and more efficiently, or they may engage us to perform, you see here, a property condition assessment or a due diligence report. Each of these reports, when they come from our firm, are geared towards an equity position in that property, meaning that those people are going to buy this building or maintain this building as owners, and it's very important for them to know life cycle costs, replacement costs, costs of deferred maintenance, any number of components that may not be as important in closing a real estate transaction with the type of due diligence report you would get from a lender. Another segment of our company is project management, program leadership. If you are planning on building a campus, for example, or an addition, we would have insightful guidance from master planning all the way through commissioning and implementation of that building. Because we've seen schools and done extensive deep dives into those facilities, we know what things work. We know what different design elements support a campus based on the size, student population, demographics, pedagogy, all sorts of things that need to be taken into account that maybe a design firm on their own wouldn't know to take into account. Very cost-effective leadership. Most of the mistakes in the construction process are made in the planning stages, and we can certainly see 100 miles down the road because of our experience. Lastly, we are experts in helping campuses improve their operations, whether that is through better energy stewardship, or maybe you just feel like it would give you a competitive advantage to have your building certified LEED, or use products that carry an Energy Star rating, because maybe that's part of your culture. Maybe you're trying to instill that in your student population. Even simple things, helping with permitting and compliance issues, certainly something that you can pick up the phone and call us for. So, and here are a few of your fellow charter schools who have worked with Building Solutions or engaged us on any number of projects, from leading a master planning effort all the way through construction of a new campus to maybe helping with permitting or energy compliance or some code advice. So we certainly appreciate all of you. And we'll be happy to talk about any of the highlights of these schools and their projects with us if you want to contact us at the information at the end of this show. Now I'm going to transition and introduce our Director of Marketing, Bill Dillard. Bill is a graduate of the prestigious Stephen F. Austin State University, Axum Jacks, where maybe or maybe not another member of our firm attended. So, Dillard, without any further ado, please take over and rescue these people from me.
Thank you so much, Joe. The facility audit itself, this is an extremely valuable tool, and this is a quote from a primary influencer for the facilities audit, the maintenance and upkeep of the building. And Harvey Kaiser, he is to facilities what Maria Montessori and Anne Sullivan are to education, and John Forbes Nash is to mathematics. And he has provided so much information, education, ingenuity, and brought forthright the idea of how important keeping your facilities in top condition is. In its simplest form, a facility audit is a process for improving facilities condition. This is helping you get the highest return out of your largest asset on your campus, which is going to be your facilities. And this helps quantify the quality of your building. The audit works along and contributes to your strategic planning, your overall budgets, and your bylaws. What's great about the facility audit is it is a living, breathing document. It continues. You begin one, and you have the assessment, and it's planned out for X number of years, but you continue to update it and maintain your records. And what's great about the audit also is you're allowing a third party to come to your campus, and they will analyze your facility strengths and weaknesses. It's very similar to having a third party come in and doing a financial audit. It's not so much they're trying to critique and criticize the individuals that are responsible for your facilities and the maintenance and such, but it's giving them an outside look, another set of eyes. And we know education is all about the kids, and you want to be able to provide your children, your staff, and all your visitors and future students and future staff and future parents with the safest environment possible. This is a really interesting stat. In recent years, there was a Stanford University research project, and this is referring to as the 80-20 rule, where 20% represents the initial cost of building your facility. 80% represents the cost of maintaining this building during its life cycle. So in an example, you put up a building that cost you $2 million, and you're hoping that building's going to last you 25, 30, 40, 50, 70 years through our lifetimes. But what you have to also understand is the maintaining of that building costs money also. And through the lifetime of that building, you have 80% of that remaining cost left to continue to update and maintain to ensure that building is at its best shape possible. You have what's referred to as a total cost of ownership, where it starts with the birth of your building, the construction of the building. Then you have your operations and management, and your recapitalization when you're doing refurbishing or some major renovations. And then ultimately, the building has extended its life to where you've maintained it so well that there's a time where it needs to be raised. But throughout your total cost of ownership, you want to remember that 20% of that building's life, the cost of that building is the initial cost is 20% of the lifetime of that building. This is a very high level, simple yet effective graph representing the condition of your building and the years of life that your building has. And this graph is just showing very briefly, but specifically, in the fact that if you don't maintain your building properly, you are reducing that building's life. And the best way to minimize the cost of these facilities is to not have to perform maintenance so often. The longest it'll serve you best is when the facility is on a preventative maintenance plan. And you want to ensure that you are putting money aside to prepare for that. You don't want a surprise to come out of the blue when you have a building that's 15 years old or even 5 years old. Well, no, I'd say 15 years old, and you have a boiler that's supposed to last 20 years, and in year 15 or year 14, that boiler, boom, it's gone, and based on not providing enough maintenance on it. And next thing you know, you're out a boiler, but you can't just not get one to replace that. You need that boiler for the function of that building. And so now you got to go find money. And if you are planning in advance and ensuring the maintenance of that boiler lasts its full life cycle, and if something more to happen, that you have money in your budget to ensure that that can be replaced and not affect your bottom line so harshly. So why have a facilities audit? Here are a few bullet pointed reasons, of which I will briefly go over. Number one is predictive power. It allows you to have an idea of your equipment in the window of their useful life. You may not have to replace something in year one, but what about year 2 or 5, 10 and beyond? You want to ensure that you have a forecasting element that allows you to be able to predict when things may need to be replaced, and that allows you to budget accordingly. Objective third-party assessment. This is someone coming onto your campus and giving you an unbiased opinion of how things are happening on your campus. It's very similar to what I mentioned earlier about the financial audit. They're not coming into campus to criticize your staff. It's coming in to your campus to give you a full idea of the conditions of your assessment, condition of your buildings. And what if you're out possibly wanting to expand your campus and open up a satellite campus or just buy a building that's near you? This will allow you to sort of help you not have to live in other people's mistakes. And when you're considering buying strip centers or churches and older buildings, there are things that you're not going to be aware of just walking into that building. You're going to want a third party to come in and give you that information. Guiding long-term physical planning. It's to ensure that your campus, your facilities are in shape for the duration of their life cycle. I mentioned earlier about the 80-20 rule. And you want to ensure that you're budgeting properly, that your buildings will stay in the best shape possible. Better mission support. The mission of your school. Every school has a specific mission, and you have specific pedagogy and classroom use for your campuses. And you want to ensure that these buildings are getting the best use as possible, and the audit will provide this information. Then you have safety and compliance codes. You have items that involve asbestos and other structural issues and security and the American Disabilities Act. You want to ensure that your buildings, your facilities are currently in code, that you're not having to work backwards or having a student or a parent become concerned with an item that they saw, but if an assessment had been performed, maybe it would have been pointed out to you, and it would save you a lot of cost. And speaking of money, it allows you to be more innovative when responding to your school mission. The audit overall does save you money in the long run, because as you are properly maintaining your facilities, you are reducing the risk of early failure of those components and those facilities. The audit, this will help you get the most out of your largest asset, your facilities. What is the value of a facility audit? Here I will provide a brief overview of these 5 items, and then I'll transition to Joe, who will go into each of these a little bit more detail, along with talking about the impact of COVID-19, the pandemic. We'll start off with financial guidance. The audit is going to provide guidance to leadership concerning reinvesting in your assets. This will extend the asset lives and reduce the life cycle costs of the buildings. You're going to want to think about the 80-20 rule. As I mentioned earlier, when you make that initial investment, whatever dollar that is, you have to ensure that you are incorporating the long-term maintenance on that building to ensure that it meets its life cycle and stays maintained as best as possible. Prioritize planning. You're managing your deferred maintenance here. The audit's going to identify impending failures that can be more economically dealt with if they're addressed earlier and in a planned fashion. You're going to want to be proactive and not reactive. Stewardship and trustment. This is going to inform leadership. It informs the capital campaign planning. So the needs of existing buildings can be incorporated into the larger effort. Just because you're building a new one, or you're buying a building, or even renovating one, when you have multiple buildings on your campus, you want to ensure that those facility needs are built into the overall planning. And this demonstrates to supporters an attitude and practice of very prudent, wise management of assets that are entrusted to the institution. You have benchmarking. For the audit, for us as a firm, we have a nice database that we benchmark schools, peers to peers, across the nation. And this allows you as a campus, as a school, to understand how you compare to your peers in the facility situation. Recorded history. The audit also provides the recorded history. This is as I mentioned earlier, it's a living learning document that is accessible with the database and information that's provided in the audit. And instead of having just 1 or 2 people that are familiar with the condition of your building, or your staff alone, your staff can change. And with the document, when someone else comes along or someone just wants some information about the facilities, the document's there to provide that to them. And it's recorded. And it's not just sitting around in someone's head. So now I'll transition over to Joe and let him go into these in a little bit more detail.
Thanks, Bill. Okay, good to be back with you. The first area of value for the facility audit that Bill discussed was financial guidance. What an incredible piece our company's created here, where you have a facilities document that its intention is to marry and bridge the relationship between facilities and the financial department of your school, where sometimes those can seem to be in conflict with each other, even though we're trying to serve the same population. So very valuable financial guidance comes from a well-performed facilities audit. It really allows you to be more predictable in what you're reinvesting in your facility assets, and that will extend the life cycle of those assets, which reduces the life cycle cost of the buildings, the grounds, and all of these components of your building. If you think about how we amortize these investments on our balance sheets, let's say, for example, you replace a roof and you amortize that over 29 and a half years, but in year 11 that roof fails and you have to do that process again. Well, now for 18 years, you're sharing a loaded cost that wasn't originally planned for. So certainly that process is valuable. This document and the report, the documents within the report, and you can see this great spreadsheet here, which is an example of the type of information you get from a facility audit, is designed to incorporate with long-term planning, like your master plan. Certainly important to know what you have before you start talking about what you need. And we feel the facilities audit marries very well with a master plan, understanding if we're going to be taking on a big capital campaign or a bond program to build a new campus, but we know we've got HVAC replacements coming up, we know we've got roof replacements coming up, or a parking lot issue, then that helps us plan for those items so that in the middle of a construction process, we're not having to scramble and reallocate funds to be reactionary to something on the campus. Another thing that comes from a well-done audit is a facility condition index. There are a number of organizations out there that set and sort of provide a commonality to assess the condition of a facility and the components within that facility. And what an FCI is designed to do is define what the quality of an asset is. It assists in assessing the facilities before purchasing or moving in. So let's say you've been leasing your campus and you've grown and now you want to get into a new campus. Well, performing some level of a facility audit to establish a facility condition index on the building, its components and systems would be very valuable, not only in knowing what type of capital reinvestment and operational cost there is that's going to exist within that building, but also in negotiating a lease or negotiating the final sell price when you're armed with useful third-party information. Impossible to talk about anything these days without looking at COVID-19, and certainly the impact on generating financial guidance is evolving. There are new costs that we are discovering all of the time. I'll share with you our company, while we have not hung our hat on any of the technologies that are coming out of the response to COVID yet. We are deep into the research, as is everybody else. There are things that we know are going to be a part of our lives going forward. Just like after 9/11, airport security was changed forever, and there were some liberties that we gave up in order to be more safe. We made changes and adjustments to our lives, and those things have stuck, and they're still a part of what we do. And there are going to be things that happen like that in response to this respiratory health crisis. The first thing we've identified is indoor air quality. There's a big push by ASHRAE, the governing body for air conditioning, heating, ventilation, mechanical components of your buildings. Usually their recommendations are adopted as code, and those have become more stringent, indicating that more outside air is a good thing, more ventilation is a good thing, more stringent filtration is a good thing. Starting to recommend air treatment such as UV lights, treating the airflow within the system, or bipolar ionization, maybe using air scrubbers inside of your room. Either way, we as a company have begun to endorse certainly a more thorough phased investigation of your HVAC system. It would do you no good to just run out and buy a MERV 13 very stringent filter to put on your air conditioning unit and add outside air intakes and do all of these things without assessing the condition of your existing air conditioning system. If your deferred maintenance and your maintenance are in deficit and you make these adjustments, you could greatly accelerate the life cycle of that air conditioning system. In fact, you could cause it to fail. So one thing that we endorse strongly is a very thorough consultative review of your HVAC system. not a contractor's evaluation. And not because contractors can't do it, but contractors are motivated by all sorts of outside factors. Um, some financial, some are limited based on what manufacturers have endorsed them to install their services. So they're somewhat limited in their recommendations and suggestions. Whereas a consultant can be unbiased, third party review of what you have in the real world, and then be very prescriptive and help create a request for a proposal from qualified contractors that addresses exactly what your school needs. So are there other impacts of COVID-19 in our financial considerations? Of course. We know that we're going to be buying more cleaning and sanitizing equipment. We are going to be buying cleaning and sanitizing materials more often, where maybe before you took order for sanitizing products every 6 months, maybe you're doing it every month, maybe you're doing it every quarter. Um, Early on in this process, we were very concerned about supply chain. Most of your facilities departments really jumped out in front of this. I know a number of your schools were represented on our webinars that we did with the Charter School Association here in Texas. Um, Asked great questions, utilized different organizations that you were members of to create cooperative purchasing opportunities. So really applaud schools' efforts to get in and out in front of supply issues. Still, an incredible financial impact that there was just no way to foresee. So, a good facility audit, especially in light of the current times, should certainly take into account how COVID-19 is going to affect our ability to respond. Another of the criteria we look at for an effective facility audit is, does it help me prioritize my planning? What a facility audit should do is help in managing deferred maintenance, identifying pending failures that can be more economically dealt with if they're addressed earlier and in a planned fashion. We talked before, if you have for example, you have a new construction project going on, knowing that the roof on your existing school is in failure and at any point could require emergency replacement, that would be something better dealt with before we got into the construction process and we're trying to manage those different funds and keep jobs on track, keep students learning in a healthy environment. There are all sorts of manner of items that would fall into that category. We all know that we go to school in Texas, and should your old, dilapidated air conditioning, air handling system fail in August, you're sending kids home. And there's an incurred cost and inconvenience on your families. And in the charter school world, we live in a much more competitive environment. We fight to get those butts in the seats. And deferred maintenance that becomes outdated facilities and outdated systems does not lend itself to parents feeling comfortable making that transition of bringing kids to the campus. The prioritized planning would allow us to have these buckets where we have certain components of our facilities that are in a maintenance mode. We certainly have this bucket where we know we're really close to having a real issue in the parking lot, or the playground needs to be replaced, and those are in this reactive, let's get it done mode. And then we have proactive maintenance, things that we can get out in front of that we know will save us money, upgrades to systems. Maybe it was changing our IT bandwidth and our IT platform to accommodate distance learning, but we got out in front of that back in March or April, and we didn't wait until we were scrambling now with the school starting and kids choosing or needing to work from home. Another thing this prioritized planning would certainly help with, like we talked about before, is if you were leasing a building and decided, you know what, it's time to buy this thing. Well, certainly you would want to know in more granularity what the deferred maintenance costs were going to be to bring things up to speed, what the reinvestment each year would be in that property, and to have some predictable third-party, technically qualified numbers rather than just your short experiential time in the building with a meeting with your facilities team, maybe somebody in operations and your school board, making that determination with a really limited set of information. Again, looking at COVID-19 impacting the facilities audit, we certainly talked about indoor air quality. How in the world do we make improvements to indoor air quality before we know what we've got in the building? How will our system accommodate these new recommendations? Another thing that we're seeing as being very important when it comes to our planning is space. Man, did space become a premium all of a sudden, or what? When you apply social distancing standards in a classroom environment, you really see how condensed we get, and we need to be able to use every bit of available space. And we can certainly make informed decisions as experienced educators, understanding our school's culture, what moves support our pedagogy. But Building Solutions has partners that specialize in education planning. In fact, one person we turn to all the time in this area is a former educator in the state of Texas, a former school administrator. She now is a licensed architect who specializes, excuse me, in space utilization. And we've done a number of these studies for schools who are trying to accommodate the most students they can in the safest manner they can with the available space they can. And that takes into account moving students throughout the day, what the traffic flow is like, eating space, meal prep, activity space for physical education and recess, room for the littles. Most of us are dealing with PK3 up to kindergarten kids who are just as likely to sneeze right on you as they are to give you a hug. And those are all things that are taken into consideration when we talk about, okay, how do we segment and create safe neighborhoods for these different groups of students so that we are doing our best to mitigate any type of viral spread. We talked briefly on that last slide about the competitive environment that charter schools live in. We all understand that there is pushback from districts. There are differing opinions within communities and within groups of teachers. So yeah, we exist in a competitive environment, and there is quite a bit of salesmanship that is required, and I'm impressed every time I'm in a charter environment of how somehow you guys as leadership are able to clearly communicate your school's mission, your school's value, while still understanding that we just like a college recruiting a football player, you've got to sell mama in the living room. And I'm always amazed at the passion that you guys bring as leadership when I see you interact with families. But all that passion really doesn't mean a lot if you've got an old, rundown, yucky looking building. And certainly a facilities audit is a living, breathing, guiding light document that can direct you to items that need to be addressed. And not just big ticket items, but one thing we've seen as an impact from COVID-19 are cleaning and sanitizing protocols, or modernization, finally having a reason to modernize bathrooms to touchless fixtures or automatic doors. All of these things lead to a competitive advantage. Walking into a school that's well maintained, well kept, certainly provides more peace of mind and comfort in transitioning your kid from the local ISD into your charter district. COVID-19 has a huge impact on this. When you're talking about a competitive advantage, you're really not talking about sticks and bricks and numbers. You're talking about emotional decisions and peace of mind based decisions. And if your school has an active response plan to COVID-19 through a facilities audit. We have Building Solutions has started including in our facilities audit a clean slate review. Some of you may be familiar with Clean Slate. It's our company's initiative that is a response to COVID-19. It's a program that guides schools from their initial decision to bring kids back on campus all the way to the first student walking in the door and taking the temperature check. But we now roll that into our facilities audit because, like we mentioned early in this presentation, not taking into account the impact of COVID-19 on your facilities operation makes no sense. It is driving every decision we make right now. So certainly being able to inform prospective families that, hey, we're a member of a program like this, like Clean Slate or some other initiative that you have that's designed specifically to mitigate the spread of the virus is an incredibly strong advantage that a public school isn't going to have because we know public schools have done all they can. But in some cases, all they can is just tell the kids to wear a mask and follow the arrows in the hall. And if you're able to do more than that, then you certainly have an advantage on bringing kids into your district. We certainly live in a time of heightened scrutiny. Everybody's tweets and posts and commentary is put under the magnifying glass, and people's actions and decisions are second guessed by communities and constituencies. So a facility audit is certainly an outward representation of stewardship. It would inform capital campaign planning. So needs of existing buildings can be incorporated into a larger effort. The facility audit would demonstrate to a board and your community an attitude and practice of prudent, wise management of assets that are entrusted to the institution. How many times have we seen on the news district leadership getting called on the carpet for how they're spending funds, what they're spending funds on, student needs being met, and certainly having a document that not only is providing that roadmap for the district and the school to follow, but also providing some accountability and being able to show, yeah, not only are we doing it, we have a plan for it, and it's not just a plan for this year, it's a plan for next year and the year after that, the 3 years after that, the 5 years after that, the 10 years past this. It's really intended to be a document that lives and grows with the school, updated every 3 to 5 years, so that we capture growth, new buildings, new students, new initiatives, pedagogy changes. We have a school, a charter school that we're working with, and maybe you're listening to this, who has identified that they want to have a performing arts focus. Wow, what a awesome idea. And man, did that change our master planning efforts, you know? Instead of a new turf on the football field, now we're looking at an incredible performing arts facility. So, and all of those decisions are guided by the master plan, which is supported by documents very important to the master plan, like a facilities audit. COVID-19, again, I think this is, along with making families feel safe, is have we put our money in the right place to make our kids as healthy as they can be? And a lot of that is communication. That's what we found through our Clean Slate program. There are some really highly visible, we call them, quote, sexy things you can do to make parents and families feel more comfortable. Requiring masks, arrows in the hallway showing the kids what direction to go. We've seen some of the littles decorate hula hoops and wear them on suspenders to remind them to keep social distance from each other. Temperature checks, controlled access to and from the building, all kinds of things that we can do that are somewhat low cost, lower entry point responses. absolutely important, because we all know that until mama is comfortable dropping the kiddos off at the corner, there ain't anybody coming back to campus. Now, the bigger ticket items, like I mentioned earlier, we feel like we're identifying indoor air quality, so your HVAC system, as a very smart place to put money in response to COVID-19. Um, but you would certainly want to be able to communicate that to your constituency through a thoughtful, well-written communication that, hey, we have had a thorough phased evaluation of our indoor air quality. We've made the following modifications to our HVAC system, and here's how it makes your kids healthier, breathe in the air that we're bringing into the building. Those type things go a long, long way to making families feel like they've made the right decision and they're at a school that is supporting their students' health. Properly conducted facilities audit will also foster professional development within your facilities department. Some schools are blessed to be able to hire a trained, qualified director of facilities who maybe has a high-level thinking functionality, who could be an operations person in their past, or maybe just has a wealth of experience through years of being in facilities. More times than not, we tend to hire somebody who's real good with tools, real good with their hands, not a lot of experience in planning. They're kind of a we can do it all, reactionary, good-hearted, hard-working guys who could really use training in departmental management techniques, capital planning, life cycle cost estimating, prioritization of deferred maintenance. All of those things would be guided by the facility audit. The other thing they would get exposed to is a very highly skilled technical staff that comes in to do the assessments, that would give them a wealth of resources to reach out to when it comes time to replace a chiller. It's in your facility audit. Here's the company that did the facility audit. I think it's a safe assumption to say that if I picked up the phone and called this company, they would be able to guide me through this process, or maybe provide project leadership on this process. But certainly professional development is something that comes from a well-done facility audit. We've seen all kinds of new learning opportunities because of COVID-19. I think we've banged the indoor air quality drum. But man, we've learned about UV light and how UV light works, and how that cleans and sanitizes the air we breathe. Bipolar ionization, different cleaning procedures, different cleaning apparatus, different elements of PPE, the personal protective equipment, how to wear it, when to wear it, who should wear it. We've seen new recommendations from ASHRAE, the governing body on our air quality. We've responded to recommendations from CDC and TEA and WHO. Any number of initials coming at you these days. But what a wild time in facilities, and what a wonderful time for growth. Having a facilities audit at your hip pocket, accessible right there on your laptop, or if you have it in a binder, you pull it right off a shelf, to be able to look at, well, they're recommending we do XYZ. Let's see what we've got and what condition what we've got is in. Now you're making really smart, informed decisions, instead of just grabbing the latest and greatest headline like we're up at 1:30 in the morning watching the Home Shopping Network and buying a microwavable spaghetti cooker. These are much more informed decisions when we know what we have, what direction we're going. Then when you fold something in like COVID-19, how much more prepared are our facilities staff to tackle something like this when they're armed with this type of information? A facilities audit will provide benchmarking. One very important aspect of benchmarking are peer comparisons. You certainly want to gain a competitive advantage when you're dealing in an environment that's so close to school of choice as we are in the charter environment. A competitive advantage comes from exactly what it sounds like, having a leg up on your competing schools. We all know that schools are driven by a state standard and the three-strike program. When a state measures your school, the benchmarking for facilities is done for the very same reason, to make sure that we are operating in a safe, healthy environment that is fully compliant with a lot of stringent regulations that we get, ADA, TEA, CDC, AIA, municipal codes, federal codes, any number of organizational recommendations when it comes to the design, operation, and usage of your building. The information in the facility audit communicates and speaks to financial managers about, okay, where are the smartest places to make our improvements? What's going to give us a competitive advantage? Certainly helps make an informed decision on, we need a new roof replacement. Sure would help if the lobby wasn't so run down when people come in. Rather than making a guess or having a contractor come out and say, hey, you have to do this roof, or having a general contractor come out and say, man, the roof's fine, let's do this lobby. If you have this document where you can open it up and look, okay, this roof, we have deferred maintenance costs of $15,000 over the next 3 years. That will get us 3 years. Let's plan on doing the lobby renovation this summer, and then in year 3, addressing the roof, because we're going to maintain this planned, scheduled, deferred maintenance. Those are much easier decisions to make than winging it. Because I promise, if you're anything like me, you're going to guess wrong, and you're going to do that lobby, and the day you open the lobby, it's going to leak in that thing. So it helps us make informed decisions rather than trying to keep all the plates spinning on top of the sticks. We have found through COVID-19 that comparing schools in a peer comparison really helps us understand regionally how people are responding to COVID-19. Gives a strong flavor for what the tolerances of your community are, for what the tolerance of your constituency are. Certainly a school that's got a more aging teacher population would want to take different precautions than a school that has a relatively young teacher population. We all know who is affected more strongly by COVID-19. You may be in a community that has a lot of intergenerational housing. You may have babies, mamas, daddies, brothers, sisters, an aunt, a grandma, all living in the same house. And if that's the case, you certainly need to take different considerations. So we have found through the Clean Slate program that we administer, providing a peer preparedness index that just is let's call it a report card on how you stack up to the peers within your community and your peers across the state. Is very effective. It's very effective for peace of mind and also for planning purposes. And finally, out of a facility audit, you're going to begin to create a written history of your facility. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with a superintendent or an operations director and said, well, when was your building, when did you do this waterproofing project? Well, let's see. I don't know that, but man, Carl would have known it, and Carl retired 2 years ago. We could probably find a receipt. I can't tell you how many situations there are like that in a school, and knowing what's been done to your school's biggest asset, your most expensive asset, your campus, your buildings, your infrastructure, the systems that support it, and not having this written, regimented history of when we did what, why we did it, what's the plan going forward, what's the cost to maintain it so that we don't have to repair it again. These are effective planning techniques. This document, this facility audit, stops us from going, man, it might be time for a new air conditioner. I don't remember when that was put in, and we've had 2 facilities guys since then. So all of this gets housed within the facility audit, and when the facility audit is updated, you capture all that data again, and it lives right there on the computer. It lives right there in your CMMS, in an Excel spreadsheet, in a binder. Whatever method it is that you prefer the assessment team to deliver that product to you in, you would have immediate access to that information. And now we're living in this world of COVID-19. Folks, this is a smaller world than we're used to dealing with. We talk about the pandemic of 1918. That probably wouldn't have been as devastating as it was had there not been a war going on. And obviously, war fosters international travel. And you have this thing spreading all over the continent. International travel is nothing for us. We go to and from countries freely. It's easy to get from place to place. We have immigration into and out of countries and blended cultures more than we ever have. So certainly be important to record what we did in response to COVID-19 so we can better deal with the next crisis. We all know that there are shady, opportunistic organizations and folks that come out of everything like this. The COVID-19 lawsuits will start. Somebody will get wind of it. Did your school know that improving indoor air quality was a way to keep kids safe? Yes, we did. Did you take any steps to do it? No, we didn't. Why not? Our kid got sick. Grandma got sick. Grandma passed away. Tell us why you didn't do this. Having a document that shows our deferred maintenance plan, the steps we took, the steps we were able to take, and the steps we're planning to take, rather than some reactionary prepared response to some horrible situation like that, certainly be beneficial. So again, all kinds of components stemming from a facilities audit to make sure that your campus is safe, your kids are healthy, and that you're being very good stewards of these facilities that have been entrusted to your leadership from your board and your community. I'm going to turn this back over to Bill Dillard. And please, if you guys have questions, our contact information is about to be shown on the next slide.
Thank you, Joe. So in conclusion, just to wrap up this presentation, I want to remind you that the facility audit is a living, breathing document. It quantifies the quality of your product. It's a process to help extend the life of your assets. We've talked about this being a living, breathing document multiple times in the presentation. And we just want to ensure that you understand this is a document that is there for your benefit for the long term, for the long haul, for your campus. Thank you so much for attending our session. It was a privilege to be able to present here at the Texas Public Charter School Association. If you have any questions, concerns, inquiries about the facility audit and COVID-19 impact on your campus, please let Joe or me know. We would love to have the opportunity to serve you and your schools. Have a great rest of the conference. Thank you for attending.